News reporter, the New World Order, Bishop Grady Lane. Y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So check this out. The insect population is at a rapid decline across the world. 40% of all insects are actually at risk of, are in the crazy decline and could actually become extinct over the next few decades. Now, who cares about insects, right? Motherfuckers be annoyed by bugs and all of that, whatever. But insects are necessary for, the pollination of our flowers or whatever, and keeping the soil clean. So really for our air and our ground. So they're a pretty functioning part of this universe and this society, this globe, this country that we in. So, just crazy to know that the effects of climate change could really kill us on so many different levels. But we'll see what happens. War, green, and graduation. So in Yemen, there is actually all their grain supplies are actually at risk of rotting. The grain supplies that was granted to them by the World Food Program, which is something that all the countries, all participating countries, most UN countries contribute to in order to help impoverished nations and war-stricken nations that might not have the resources. Nevertheless, all their resources that can actually feed 3.5 million people for up to a month is all at risk of rotting because of the constant war there. The stuff it's actually in the capital city of let me make sure I'm saying it right, Hurghada or whatever. Like, it's stuck in the capital city and it's been there since September and inaccessible, quite frankly. 10 million people are at risk of starving in Yemen. There have been a lot of Saudi Arabian attacks against them by U.S. weapons. We'll see what happens. So Nicki Minaj is actually pulling out of co-headlining the BET Experience that was supposed to go on this summer, where she was going to co-headline with Cardi B. Now, as y'all know that about the beef between Nicki and Cardi, shit, everybody know that. Whatever they had, almost had it out in public. Nevertheless, that would have been huge for the culture, for all cultures, pop culture, definitely hip hop culture and all of that, for New York City and the tri-state area and all of that. And she pulled out because motherfucking BET actually tweeted out while Cardi was getting the Grammy for Best Rap Album that they showed a picture of Cardi and said, meanwhile, Nicki Minaj is being dragged by her lace front. Wow, how disrespectful. I don't know what the fuck intern they got over there or that thought that was intelligent to do. Somebody that's obviously not in tune with the culture, or somebody that was just trying to be witty and get their comeuppance going on, but you fucked it up for everybody. So there's a $48 million federal project going into creating new homes, a new community for the people at the Isle, this John Charles in Louisiana, which is right at the Gulf of Mexico. And over the past several decades, they've just been watching their city go more and more underwater, and it's becoming uninhabitable. So they put this project together to essentially move all of these people to a whole community where there's going to be like baseball fields and a town hall area. They're going to give them like a solar garden so that they could like create electricity and sell it. There, fishing ponds and all of that, baseball fields. I think I mentioned baseball fields. So it's kind of crazy because they have all of this money for that, but they won't have all of this money to actually shift our country towards just being more, into renewable energy. 100 million U.S. people are actually being affected by this with, some sort of like winter weather advisory or watch or warning or whatever. And 1,800 flights have been canceled today across the country. So these as you know, like a couple weeks ago or the last couple weeks, there's been a polar vortex going through the Midwest. And it's just been cold as fuck. Like, let's keep it real, it's brick as hell outside, and that's just what we dealing with. I mean, it's February, but it's a cold ass February. And February is always cold, especially in the north, especially in the northeast. So we dealing with some fuck shit today, but we'll see how this pans out. We'll see if it actually urges this Republican executive branch into actually making a move on climate change. Probably not, because they pocket so deep in oil, but you never know. So war, green, and graduate. So U.S.-led airstrikes actually have wiped out 86 people from this planet as of yesterday. And this was said to be done in the region in eastern Syria that was the last stronghold that ISIS had on the area or whatever. But the news is kind of always telling you that. Nevertheless, give y'all perspective, one airstrike took out 19 Syrian government officials and ISIS fighters combined. Russia keeps urging the U.S. to pull out of Syria. Iran actually just issued a public statement talking about that the U.S. bases in Syria are well within their cross-border missile reach. And it's just kind of crazy. And Trump already said that we were leaving and defeated ISIS, but government officials said that that's not true. So we'll see what happens. So immigrants from Honduras and Nepal, Honduras being a country in Central America and Nepal being a country that is northern adjacent to India and Asia. The immigrants that actually migrated from those places to San Francisco are actually filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump and him canceling the TPS for their country groups. So TPS stands for Temporary Protection Status, and it was initiated to basically give it's self-explanatory to give immigrants temporary protection status until they get their paperwork and all that shit together or whatever. Hondurans, from what I remember, were the most affected, which kind of adds to the irony of this whole border wall situation. But nevertheless, they're filing a lawsuit because they're saying it's racist. So we'll see what happens. Wolverine and graduation. So at Wright State University, which is a college in Ohio, the teachers there had just ended a 20-day strike. Now I just mentioned before, that there's teacher strikes going on across the country. It's crazy that our education system is being challenged like this, when our teachers are, on all levels, are like some of the most important beings in life and in this country. But we're gonna rectify that. But nevertheless, a 20-day strike, that's the second longest strike ever for a college or public university in U.S. history. And they did it because they were recently offered a contract that would have just made conditions worse and would have decreased their benefits. So they had enough and they strike. So I hope people learn from these protests and these strikes that I keep bringing up, because the power is with the people. War, greed, and graduation. So the Hartford Courant, which is the main newspaper in Hartford, Connecticut, Hartford being the capital of Connecticut, one of the original 13 colonies of this country, you dig? The Hartford Courant is actually the oldest continuously publishing newspaper in the country, and their workers are deciding to unionize. So just like a bunch of other newspapers across the country, they're suffering and they're doing cuts to their budget and all of that. So, people are worried, the workers are worried, and they want to be protected, so they're unionizing. Shout out to them, because journalism is important. Everything can't really be online, because online shit can always be manipulated. Whereas when you print something, as soon as you print it, it's there forever, for as long as that thing doesn't get damaged. So, just something to think about. Stay tuned. War, green, and graduation. So, for the second day in a row, Denver, Colorado teachers are on strike. Let me be clear, they are on strike. Now, there's strikes happening around the country surrounding these educational systems that simply just aren't paying teachers enough. Denver, Colorado teachers have had enough, basically. They want more livable wages. They want more better classroom management, because there's a lot of inadequate staffing going on. And straight like that, you'll see how this pans out. War, green, and graduation. So there's a new CNN investigative series on the death of James Brown, legendary soul singer who made Black and I'm Proud, for example. He has other joints, classic joints. His shit is sampled all throughout hip hop. So, if you don't know who he is, go figure it out. But nevertheless, his death is being examined because 13 people who were close to this man said that there should be an autopsy and a criminal investigation into it. They believe he was murdered, despite the official ruling being that he died of natural causes from a heart attack and water going into his lungs and all of that, whatever. Those 13 people include his own doctor, Dr. Marvin Crawford, who actually tried to get an autopsy run, but his own daughter, James Brown's daughter, declined. And it was rumored that his body wasn't even in his crib. trip. And when his other daughter was asked about it, she didn't really offer confirm or deny. Sounds weird. So, porn star Stormy Daniels, real name Stephanie Clifford, actually filed suit against President Donald Trump and his former lawyer Michael Cohen, because they basically said that bitch is lying. She ain't have sex with Trump. Now, it was supposed to go according with a non-disclosure agreement that Michael Cohen got her to sign. And Michael Cohen is actually about to do a 3-year prison sentence. I'm not sure if it started yet already, but if it didn't, it's about to start very soon. For lying to the FBI about these 130 bands. The reason he lied is because the 130 bands came from the campaign funds, which is the presidential campaign fund, and that's illegal. Nevertheless, last week, LA judge dismissed her civil suits against the defamation suits against Trump. Against Cohen or whatever. And this kind of opens her up to still get hit by that non-disclosure agreement break. So we'll see what happens. So yesterday in El Paso, Texas, Trump actually had a rally basically for the border wall. El Paso, Texas is in Texas. It's I guess near the border, but actually there was a counter rally held by Beto O'Rourke, a former Democratic senator who's actually being looked at to give the 2020 presidential seat a run. So we'll see what happens with that, but just to show you the type of fuck shit that goes on at these Trump rallies still to this day, even since he's been campaigning for the original presidency. One of his supporters attacked a BBC cameraman, and everyone's saying that this was incited by the rhetoric that he was using, the anti-media rhetoric that he was using at this rally. So, just more bullshit from that guy, man. War, green, and graduation. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who actually was the first person to swear in to Congress on the Quran. You know what I'm saying? She's a Muslim American. She actually apologized for a tweet that she put out suggesting that AIPAC, which is basically a Jewish lobbying company, organization, not company, that is normally the first to step up whenever to call somebody anti-Semitic whenever they say something that's against Israel or that even suggests that anything about Jews, in a negative fashion or whatever. That this pro-Israel lobbyist group is responsible for paying off Congress people to be pro-Israel. So she apologized for it, but a lot of people know that she was talking some real. So, fucked up she had to back down.